Welcome to Alternate History, where we learn history that never happened, like it actually happened. Today we'll be examining the results of my recent Let's Play attempt at the last Roman achievement in Attila Total War, and reviewing from the point of view like it actually happened that way, including some interesting speculation as to what would have happened next. Who is the last Roman? Historians commonly attribute this designation to the general Belisarius. He is widely seen as the last native-speaking general to mount a major conquest on behalf of his emperor, similar to how Marcus Agrippa led the armies of Rome for Augustus. The events which led to Procopius penning the work called The Last Roman, a short historical work on Belisarius' tragic life, recounts the events as follows. Belisarius had been appointed command of a Roman expedition sent to reclaim the old province of Africa from the Vandals. He had been chosen because of a close friendship that he cultivated with the Roman Emperor Justinian. A friendship forged out of the disastrous year 532 when, during the chaos of the Nika riots, Belisarius never left Justinian's side. Now with his rule established, Justinian eyed a mighty accomplishment to solidify his rule and cement his place in history, the reconquest of the lost western provinces. Belisarius had commanded the emperor's bodyguard and also had served as general in the east, where he had maintained the empire's borders with Sassanid Persians. To be given this monumental task, the emperor would ensure his name would also not be forgotten. Like the Roman generals of old, Belisarius would seek bloody adventures and bring his emperor the prestige of Restitutor Orbis, the restorer of the world. All Belisarius would need to do is navigate the tricky politics of court and stay focused at the task at hand to ensure his success. In the winter of 533, the Vandal king of North Africa, Hilderic, was deposed by the usurper Gelimer. Under the pretext of instability within the barbarian territories, Justinian declared war. The barbarian kingdoms kept up a nominal loyalty to the Roman emperor, claiming to rule on his behalf. This allowed the old territories to continue to operate like Roman provinces and retain Roman institutions, and gave the barbarian nobility a wide grant of control over how they managed their territories. It served both parties well. The barbarian kings appeared legitimate to their Roman subjects, and the Roman emperor's prestige would not be unduly damaged by continuing to allow barbarian rule within what was Roman territory. With the death of Hilderic, though, this illegal usurpation threatened to shatter his illusion if Justinian did not intervene to restore order. That being said, Justinian had no interest in restoring Hilderic to the throne and continuing the charade. Belisarius had barely set foot in Africa when he learned that Hilderic's head had become separated from his body. If order was to be restored under Belisarius, it would be true Roman order, no more facade. Belisarius detached from the main army group John the Armenian and a legion of men to strike inland into Africa province, while he marched up the coast. Hadrumetum, Sufetula, and Thysdrus fell quickly, and John looped back to the main forces. This was fortunate, as King Gelimer fell upon Belisarius at Thysdrus with the whole of the Vandal army. The battle was fought within the town of Thysdrus proper, with the Vandals rushing to capture the citadel. In the melee against the town's volunteer garrison, King Gelimer was ignobly killed. His brothers, who led wings of the army, tried to hold things together, but Belisarius drew his army around the town as he reinforced from the south, surrounding the major lanes of exit to the city. At this point, Belisarius released his cavalry to cut down those that fled, leading to a decisive victory. The Battle of Thysdrus broke the power of the Vandalic kingdom, with most of its best fighting men killed. Through the summer, Belisarius and John secured the southern portion of the province. Due to some treachery, John was killed in a skirmish with rebels loyal to the Vandal nobility. Antonina, Belisarius' wife, had dispatched a promising young man named Theodosius to Belisarius, hoping that he would be adopted into the family, but Belisarius refused the request. Being loaned some unknown man from his wife would weaken the view of the men held for Belisarius, but also not willing to condemn Theodosius to ignominy, he had time to take charge of John's legion in the hopes that the young man could earn honor under his own name. In the fall of 533, Belisarius invested Carthage, and after a month assaulted the walls. The city, which had fallen over 100 years earlier, was once again in the hands of the Romans. While Belisarius put his troops to work recapturing and repairing Carthage, Theodosius continued to secure the interior. This put him into conflict with the Berbers, and without consulting Belisarius, Theodosius attacked the Berber army at Thegeste. This was not strategically sound. The masters of desert warfare, the Berbers, easily exhausted the Roman forces, not simply routing Theodosius, but destroying the entire army. Theodosius tried to flee only to be captured by the Berber nomad horsemen, who killed and beheaded the young would-be general. Belisarius bore the news as well as he could. He felt no feelings for the man foisted upon him by his wife, but the loss of nearly half the expedition forces was a cruel blow. At this point, the Vandal forces capitulated to the Romans, swearing allegiance to Justinian. But now Belisarius had to deal with the Berbers who were moving against the province from the west. Sensing a corpse, the Sardinian kingdom landed west of Carthage, taking a city from the Vandal garrison. Unwilling to leave this affront alone, Belisarius took the city and put the Sardinian raiders to the sword, angering their king. Belisarius spent an uneasy winter in Carthage. Justinian sent a letter congratulating him on his victory, unaware of Theodosius's defeat. Events were quickly moving in the Ostrogothic kingdom of Italy. The pro-Roman queen of the Ostrogoths was imprisoned, and Justinian saw this as an affront worthy of expanding his war to Italy, in the hopes of reclaiming Rome. To ensure success, Justinian dispatched another army from the east to reinforce Belisarius. Little did he know, though, that this was not expanding the expedition, but only replacing its significant losses. Belisarius, in the spring of 534, met the Berbers at the Battle of Bulla Regia, defeating them decisively. Yet the Berbers had heard about Belisarius's movements and met him in a second battle not far from the site of the first. Belisarius made a desperate stand and achieved a narrow victory, extricating his troops from a near defeat. The summer of 534 was tense, and Belisarius received a second letter from Justinian, requesting he proceed to Italy and rescue the queen before the same fate that befell Hilderic befell her. Yet Belisarius, with the situation rapidly coming apart in Africa, could not abandon the province without any military forces. He decided to use the reinforcements sent by Justinian to begin the liberation of Italy to keep Justinian satisfied that progress was being made. During the winter of 535, the sun was blotted out. Historians and scientists speculate that this was either due to a series of massive volcanic eruptions or a significant meteor impact. This caused the earth to be covered in smoke in the upper atmosphere. The Romans took this as a poor omen, and as a result, crops failed and famine followed. During the winter, another request came from Belisarius' wife Antonina, requesting his capture of Caesarea in the old province of Mauritania, west of the Africa province, for its famed gems that Antonina coveted. Fearing the loyalty of his wife would waver should he ignore her, Belisarius made the fateful decision to move his army west along the coast. There was some benefit strategically in striking west into the heart of Berber territory, and it did fall into the purview of conquest as desired by Justinian, but it also exposed Belisarius' flank to the southern deserts, mostly impassable terrain to the Romans, but navigable to the Berbers. In command of a new expedition army sent by Justinian was led by Valerianus, who made landfall in Sicily. He captured Agrigentum, and finding little opposition, continued to liberate the island. As spring took hold in 535, Belisarius moved west, and the Berbers responded by blocking the west road with an impressive army of nomad horsemen and tribal infantry. Belisarius decided to assault their camp, but to his surprise, his troops began to waver and eventually broke. Falling back, he attempted to rally his men, but the Berbers, smelling blood, charged forward. Belisarius, wounded badly, managed to escape the field in disguise and make his way to the coast. He took leave of Africa and sailed for Sicily. The defeat, in combination with the blotted-out sun, shattered Belisarius' nerves. By the time he arrived in Sicily, Valerianus, unaware of the extent of the disaster, had retaken Syracuse. The cool summer of 535 brought no good news to Belisarius' camp. He heard from the Roman governor in Africa that a previously unknown tribe of the Moors had moved north from the dry interior into the vacuum created by the collapse of the Vandalic kingdom, and they came in force, capturing town after town as there was nothing to stop them in terms of Roman forces. The only consolation about this news was that the Moors felt no love for the native Berbers either, small comfort to a man facing his total ruin. The news grew even worse. Justinian's stipend for the reinforcing army only covered a year's wages for these troops. Belisarius had not found a steady supply of cash in Sicily, nor could he turn the army camp profitable. As fall arrived, the troops in Valerianus's army grew mutinous. The Sardinians landed in western Sicily in September and began capturing the west of the island. Therefore, Belisarius and Valerianus decided to put the troops' minds to task and attacked. Valerianus secured a victory, halting the Sardinian progress, but even this could not keep the Roman troops set on the task before them, and they began to desert en masse. By November, the army was significantly reduced, and with the news that the Sardinians had reassembled and were moving against Syracuse, the panic was palpable. Unable to restrain the mutinous troops who deserted or defected to the Sardinians, Belisarius knew what he had to do. According to Procopius, he wrapped himself in a white cloak, mounted his horse, and in one valiant final attempt attacked the Sardinian forces with his loyal companions in the hope to rally his troops. The charge of the last Roman ended the only way it could end, though. Belisarius was unceremoniously killed, surrounded by a few loyal friends that remained. The campaign to reconquer the West was over. What was the legacy of this campaign? Well, the most significant legacy was the cooling of relations between the Romans and the Ostrogoths. Belisarius had failed Justinian, and now he was dead. The darkening of the sun was blamed as an omen of the end times, and contemporaries saw it as God's displeasure with his people. Justinian remained interested in mounting another expedition to the west, but in the 540s the bubonic plague struck the empire, killing millions. The empire was at an end, and the loss of Rome fully realized, and any illusion of Roman power over the barbarian kingdoms shattered. Another fateful legacy was the rise of the Moors. As long as the Vandals ruled North Africa, Christian Roman citizens in the old province were protected, and life continues as it had, for the most part, before they had even come to Africa. But with the Vandal kingdom broken, the Moors exploited this, putting many to the sword, as they were pagans and did not respect the old Roman institutions. North Africa's connection to the Roman world was forever changed, and the prosperity of that region would never reach the zenith it had as under Carthage and Rome. Justinian died to the plague in 543. A broken man and a failed emperor, contemporaries speculated that the shattering of his dreams broke his will, and that the legacy of his rule was a far weaker empire than the one he had taken charge of. But revisionist historians have cut his short reign some slack. Most of the failures Justinian suffered were due to external factors, such as the lack of weakness of the barbarian kingdoms, the incompetence of his generals, and the staggering number of natural disasters. In many ways, his vision was for an empire that no longer existed, of a strong Rome of years gone by. But the empire he ruled could not resist the changing times. This was Justinian's lasting legacy, a sad bookend to a glorious but ended epoch, that of the Roman Empire. Demoralized, 50 years later, the Sassanid Empire overran the eastern provinces, dealing the final blow and establishing a new era of Persian rule from Greece to Egypt that would last 1,000 years. Historians can but speculate the world that would have been had Belisarius been successful, had he truly achieved the potential of the last Roman.